Okay, hey, this is Dave Negri with Contractors Secret Weapon, and I just want to thank everyone for coming today and listening and being loyal listeners. And today I have an awesome guest, Chris Dayley, and he's going to talk about some awesome things about websites and conversions and optimizations. And actually, Chris is a digital marketing entrepreneur with a passion for helping business succeed online. And after spending years of driving traffic through SEO and PPC efforts, Chris turned his attention to the user experience of websites to see if he could influence traffic to convert better. And after running his successful test, he fell in love and began focusing on helping businesses test their website experience. And he started his own website conversion optimization agency, Daily Conversion, which is a full-service agency helping businesses discover what converts best on their sites through testing. And then in 2016, he merged his company with Disruptive Advertising. I love that name. Where he currently works as Vice President of Site Testing and Optimization. And they offer full-service A/B testing, which you really don't hear too much about. Solutions to clients, including strategy design, development, and analysis. And, one of the nice things about Chris comes with credentials. I went to his LinkedIn page, and he won a Gold Email Landing Page Testing Award, which they created a landing page and tested it in the email traffic and generated 97% conversion rate. And so he was awarded first place, which Test One Email Mobile Testing Awards contest for that test. And they have an awesome blog, and so we'll hear more about that. Thanks, Chris. I just want to thank you for being with us and talking about websites, conversions, and all the fun stuff that nobody else understands.
You got it. I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
So, I have a lot of people that I talk to, and they go, I want to be on the first page of Google. I want to be on the first page of Google. And I go, what good does it do if nobody calls you?
Yep.
So, how do you get the websites to convert better?
Yeah, well, no, that's a big question. And to your point, I spent a lot of time helping businesses get to the front page of Google. That was what I did for 3 or 4 years. And exactly what you just said happened time and time again. I would help people get to the front page of Google. We would get there, they would start getting a bunch of traffic, and they'd say, where's all my clients? What's going on here? How come we're not getting more customers? And so, that's exactly why I started doing what I do. If your website experience it doesn't address the problems that your users are trying to solve, if it doesn't answer the questions they have, and if it's not easy to follow, if it's not intuitive, then nobody's gonna reach out to you. Nobody's gonna call you. Nobody's gonna fill out your lead form. Buy your product, whatever it is. And so, figuring out how to convert your customers is a big question. It's an important question, and the answer to that question is you have to run tests on your website. It comes down to being curious about your audience and not assuming that you know what they want. So you have to ask yourself some questions and say, what does my audience want for my website? And then create a couple of different paths for them to go down and see what they do. See what they want to do, and build your website around what they tell you they want to do.
Well, so, let me ask you this question. And this is really interesting, the A/B testing, because no one really talks about it. And I think it might be a scare point, because most people are looking at, they're paying for services like yours, and they're going, oh no, A/B testing, I just want to over and done with, but the A/B testing is really, you need to do it because you really need to find out what works, don't you?
Yeah, and what most people do when they're building a website, and whether you're a contractor, whether you're an agency, whether you are a fully fledged business, what most people do when they're building a website is find a good designer or a good design agency, tell them what they want, the agency or the designer builds it and designs it, and then you build it and launch it. But nowhere in that process have you been very data-driven about why you want the website to be the way you want it. Most entrepreneurs go, well, I know my customers, I know my audience better than anybody. I've done all this research. I've talked to every single one of my customers that's ever signed up. Yada yada yada, and I know exactly what they want. But the fact of the matter is, and this is where it really gets interesting. Most people don't actually know what they want on the web. So we ran a survey to some potential customers a while back, and we gave our survey audience 2 different website experiences, and we asked them which one they wanted to, which one they liked better. And the overwhelming majority, like 85% of them, voted for, let's just call it version 1.
Okay.
And only 15% voted for version 2. Well, we ran the test anyways. We tested both of the pages at the same time with real traffic, with our real audience, and it turns out that the overwhelming majority preferred version 2 when it came to a real web experience. And so what that told us was the majority of people, they didn't actually know which one they would want when they're on the web. And so when you ask your customers, when entrepreneurs and business owners and marketers, they tell me they know what their audience wants, I almost always call BS on it, because they don't know what their audience wants, because their audience most of the time doesn't even know what they want.
That's really interesting, because before you started going to it, I'm going, all you got to do is find out what your customers want and ask them. But I guess when you get, like what you were just saying, which really just blew my mind with the 2 different tests, they picked one without going to the web, and then they went to the web and they picked the one that everyone else picked the lower amount, and I'm just going, that's crazy.
Yeah. And the way that the test is run is, when you do the type of testing that I do with my clients, you have 2 different versions of your website that you run at the same time, and half of your visitors get one and half of the visitors get the other. And they have no idea what's happening. They don't know that they're being tested on. But that way you get a really good sampling of, okay, well, how did people perform when they got those 2 different experiences? And that gives you some unbiased data. Because when you sit down and you start asking people what they want and what they like, you already have an unconscious bias. They're trying to tell you what they know. But what Harvard actually found, so Harvard Business School did a study to try to figure out what percentage of our purchase decisions we're actually consciously aware of. And when they did this study, and they found that 90 to 95% of the reasons that we buy are subconscious.
Wow.
So they're subconscious things that are influencing us. They're outside factors. But they're things that we're not consciously thinking about. And so that tells you that when you're asking people what they want from their website experience, you're just getting that top 10%. That 10% that's on the top of their head that they're actually aware of.
So in reality, because you think that marketing is marketing, but it's really not. When because you just made the premise that, okay, we showed them this this one section here, and then they actually went to the website and they completely turned everything upside down. So I just find that really intriguing to think that, like you said, people really don't know what they want until they get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you find as when you are pulling together your A/B testing that every let's say audience is different, or do they fall into, I know I'm getting off script here, but do they fall into a generality, or do they, I don't know if that was the right question, but do they fall into a generality when you're building a website, or does it have to do with the particular type of business?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what you're asking is, are there things that tend to be true for large groups of people, or things that tend to be true from audience to audience, or is every single one different?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is yes.
Yes to what?
So there are concepts that tend to work on every audience. Concepts like simplicity. So a website that is driven by simplicity, that is easy for your users to engage with, almost always works, no matter what your audience is.
I would imagine, yeah.
You know, and I've done testing for people that, for people that are marketing to people that are trying to go back to school to get educated, and I've worked with people that are marketing to PhDs and physicians and doctors. And, you would think that maybe the doctors, they might want a more, they're a little bit more savvy, they're more educated, they're more whatever. They want more content, they read more. The truth of it is, they don't. They want the same type of web experience that everybody else does, which is a very easy to navigate, easy to, straight and to the point website experience. So there are concepts that tend to work for every audience, but the way that you implement it is going to be different for every single audience.
Okay.
So, I can say you want a website that is simple, and then you go, okay, well, what does that mean, right? I mean, what's a simple website? And so that's where the testing comes in, because you go, okay, well, I mean, part of that principle is you don't want your audience to have to think for more than 2 to 3 seconds about what they have to do. So you might have a lot of content you want them to read, but you want them to be able to immediately identify what they should do on the page. So, so then the question is, okay, well, where do I put that? So if my call to action is go to this next page on my site, but I want them to read the content first, should I put it after the content? And the answer is no. The answer is you may want to have a call to action after your content, but you also want to let your users know exactly what they should do, because maybe they don't want to read the content, or maybe they've already read the content.
Right.
And they just want a really clear, simple path forward. And so that's where we help businesses when we start testing with them. We ask those questions, and we say, how much content does your audience actually want to read? Where are they going to engage with, with your call to action? If you're trying to get them to sign up for a lead form, do you want that lead form to be on your home page? Should it be on your information page? Should it be just on the Contact Us page? I mean, where are people most likely to convert? So, asking those kinds of questions is critical to figuring out how your audience is different than everybody else's.
Right. So basically what you're doing is you're doing a big bag of nuts with psychology.
Exactly. Yep.
And so that's what determines on what's going to influence your audience behavior.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is actually most interesting to me. That's one of the things I love most about what I do is there's a huge psychology aspect here of what is going to influence people to do what I want them to do. I don't know if you know this, but in person, like brick and mortar stores, they've been doing this for decades. They will test different store layouts and figure out what products do people need to see when they first enter the store, what are they most likely to buy when they first enter the store, and where should we put all of these different products, what things are more likely to be impulse buys, and should we put the impulse buys next to the cash register, or should we put them right by the store entrance, and where should we put the most expensive products. So stores, they've been doing this for years, but most people don't think about doing that with their website. And it's really the same concept.
Yeah, because they're shopping.
Exactly. Even if you have an informational site where you want people to consume content, they're still shopping because they're still trying to figure out, do you have what I want?
Right. And what's going to be the easiest, or I was looking at something this morning and for my wife's business, and a guy was coming in and we were talking about videos, and he was saying that most of the people, we own a title company, another business, and he was saying that they make videos for realtors under a minute. Everything's to the point, and for a minute, because I don't want to spend any more time than a minute looking at something or passing it on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going, that's pretty funny, but it's the truth. We've gotten down to, if you could do it in 20 seconds and get a full story out, that would be okay too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's really what people, that's when I say this concept of simplicity is critical, because you want to give people everything they want and nothing else. You want to get rid of all of the extra crap that most businesses put on their website.
Right. The stuff that they don't need.
Yeah, I call them distractions. Things that are distracting your audience from what they really want. And most businesses don't want to admit that anything on their website is a distraction. In fact, I just got off a call with a business owner that, we were discussing his website, and I suggested that he remove some of the sections of content from his site. And he said, no, we can't remove that. I want them to see that. That's really important for them to see.
Sure.
My question to him was, is it important if you remove it and the audience converts better? Then was it really important in the first place? Maybe it was important to you, but is it important to your audience? And so that's really what you want to try to figure out, is what is absolutely critical for my audience, and what do they not really care about? Because there's likely a lot of things on the site that your audience doesn't care about.
Well, it's sort of, as I'm thinking about, what you're saying about the content on the page, and it's probably fine to disperse it throughout the website, but to have everything on the front page isn't it? I mean, it's like that postcard that most people put out. They put everything on the postcard that they do in their business because they want to take care. They're paying a lot of money for that space, and they want everyone to know what they do. Mm-hmm. However, it ends up confusing the customer, and they throw that postcard away.
Yep, exactly. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, my whole thing has been the one thing, advertise the one thing, because invariably people will always say, what else do you do?
Yep, exactly. And one other thing that really just, that I'll say in kind of closing off, talking about this, but one other thing about that is I call it content overload. So, and it's when, businesses like to try to tell their story. So they think, every business thinks that everyone cares about their story.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is that most people don't care about your story until they care about your product and until they've gotten answers to the questions that they want. So a lot of businesses will try to put up, our mission and our vision right on their homepage.
Yeah.
When in reality, people are coming to your homepage because they have a problem, they have a question, they think you can solve it, and they want to hear how you can solve their problem or answer their question before they're going to care about why you're doing it. Right? I mean, I don't know, I don't care what, I don't care what Walmart, that Walmart really cares about having low prices until I know that they've got something that I want, and then I go, oh, and Walmart cares about giving me low prices every day.
And I'm willing to pay that price, so whatever the case may be. No, I'm with you on that. It's just, I think, as I see things, and maybe you do too, is that most people are more concerned about, are not as concerned, let's put it this way, I'll do it the polite way, are not as concerned about their customers they should be. They're more concerned about how they can generate revenue, but they don't take care of the customer first.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty well. So if people have never tried A/B split testing, where would they start? They'd call you for sure.
Yeah. So, well, and I'll tell you this: it's scary for a lot of people to try this. Like you said, it's something that anything to do with the website, to do with changing your website or modifying it, testing it, whatever. That can be really scary to people. And so a lot of people just don't do it for that reason.
Right.
It's a technical thing. It's whatever. It sounds like too much work. The truth is, it doesn't have to be a lot of work. In fact, one of my clients, does most of his testing by himself, and he does it in a half an hour each week.
Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's not super time-consuming. I think that's approachable for most people, even entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Say, I could give up a half an hour per week. And so if you haven't done it before, Where you want to start is you want to first get a tool to run the test. So in order to do, split testing, A/B testing, you need a tool that's going to split that traffic for you. And so, my favorite two tools to use are Optimizely and Visual Website Optimizer, or VWO. They both have, I think, free trial versions of their software that you can use. And both of these are, I would put at the more beginner level of the testing tools. There's a lot of A/B testing tools out there, and they get more sophisticated as you and they also get more expensive from there. But so you want to get a testing tool. You want to, and then what you want to really do is you want to think about what you should test on your site. So the way that I like to do that is I like to first go through, and this is really hard for business owners to do, but this is a critical part of website testing, is go through and do an unbiased review of your site. So when I do reviews of people's sites, there's a few key things that I look at. So on every page of the site, I ask myself, or I ask the business owner, I say, what is the purpose of this page? What do you want people to do? So, what's the value proposition of this page? And so if it's a product page, you can say, well, on this page, I want people to add this product to their cart. So you say, okay, well, that's the main thing you want people to do. On your home page, what do you want people to do? And a lot of times people go, I don't know. I want them to find the page that they want.
No, that makes sense, because I'm sitting here thinking about the same thing myself,
Right. And so the first thing I look at is, what do you want people to do on this page? The second thing I ask people to do is ask yourself, is the content, is the design, is the experience of this page relevant to what the user is probably looking for? So are you giving them stuff that addresses their immediate need? And then the two things that are the most critical for me are, number one, what are things that might potentially be distracting your users from that goal? And number two, are there things that may potentially cause anxiety for people? So one thing that immediately comes out that can cause anxiety is if you have like those autoplay videos.
Yeah.
So any site that has autoplay videos, I know why people try to use them, but anytime you go on a site that has an autoplay video, you immediately feel anxiety and you're trying to figure out how to shut it off. Especially if you're at work, and the sound comes on, it's like, crap, that's annoying. If you have your headphones on, you weren't expecting it, and all of a sudden you have all this noise blaring in your ears, right? I mean, that's something that can cause anxiety. And so what I try to do is I go through a website and I just write down all of the things in these sections. I write down, here's what I want people to do. Here is whether or not, this page is relevant to what my customer is looking for. Here are the things that are potentially distracting. Here are the things that are potentially causing anxiety. And then it's very simple to come up with your first few test ideas from there, because you go, okay, well, let's look at all the things that are distracting on the page, and maybe our first test is to remove all those things and see if that helps the audience perform better on the page. And, let's look at all the things that are causing anxiety. Maybe our next test is, let's change the things that are causing anxiety. If we have an autoplay video, let's not have it autoplay, and let's see how that does.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to take the video off the page entirely. Let's just challenge some of our assumptions. So, those are kind of the first two steps. If you've never done testing before, number one, get a testing tool. Number two, figure out what you want to test on your page, and that analysis that I just went through is one of the easiest ways to find things to test.
Yeah.
Then number three is to just do it. Just run the test.
Well, the cool thing about that is, now as you've just gone through all those things about, thinking about this and doing that and thinking about that basically you don't have to come up with a redesign of your whole website, because you're just basically you're picking stuff off the tree that don't belong there.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that, website redesigns are something that every company has inevitably spent way too much money on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies out there that will regularly invest $50,000 to $100,000 every year to just redesign their site.
Ouch.
But there's usually not much strategy behind the redesign. I mean, companies think that they have a strategy behind the redesign. But ultimately it's not because the users want something different. It's just because the company wants, a new fresh look or whatever. And so the great thing about testing is as you test on your website, and if you test regularly, so if you set aside a half an hour a week, and you're always testing on your site, you never have to do a major website redesign because you're going to constantly be testing and figuring out what your audience wants, and your site is going to gradually evolve over time to what your users want. And so you never have to spend a ton of money and a ton of time going through one of those website redesigns because your site will be automatically redesigning itself every year.
Well, yeah, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about, like we offer maintenance programs for homeowners so that when they get ready to sell their house, there's no aha moments because everything's been done over a period of time. And it's basically, you're saying the same thing with the website. You're doing a little bit at a time to find out what works, what doesn't work, so that you don't have to spend a fortune to say, this really sucks, I'm getting a new one.
Right, exactly.
So a lot of websites, and I've noticed that have crappy mobile experiences.
Yes.
And I really hate it, and I'm sure most people hate it when you got to play with your screen to get it bigger and smaller to see words. That just drives me nuts. What can people do to overcome that?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, you bring up a really good point. Nothing is more frustrating than being on a mobile device and going to a website that doesn't look good on your mobile device. Whether the text is too small, or it's too big, or it's not formatted right, and it's falling off the edge of the screen. Everyone's encountered these kinds of frustrating situations. And that's where, that's actually one of the first areas that we look at with most of our clients is let's look at your experience on a computer, and then let's take a look at it on the phone, and let's figure out how deliberate have you been with your mobile experience. So, the thing that I usually ask my clients is, what does your audience want that might be different on a mobile device than on a desktop device? And so for service-based professionals, if you're a contractor, if you're an agency, if you are a local, brick and mortar store, people probably want to call you. It's really easy to call on a mobile device. It's not as easy to fill out a form or, go through a checkout process. And so if you're the kind of business where, where people may want to call you, you want to make it super easy, super in front of your face on the mobile experience. So you want to have a gigantic click-to-call button that says, click here to call us. In fact, we just ran a test for a client of ours, and for them, phone calls were really important. And on their site, they had a little red icon in the top right corner of their mobile experience that was just a little phone icon, and that's all it was. It was just a little tiny icon with a picture of a phone in the middle. And one of our hypotheses were, okay, well, we think that that's probably a big deal. People probably want to call, but they probably can't. They're probably not paying much attention to that. So let's create a big click-to-call button that spans the entire width of the mobile device that has some kind of a value proposition that's, so call for a free quote or something like that. So we implemented that, and it had about a 200% increase in phone calls for them.
Wow.
Just from that one thing, just for making that button bigger, making it front and center, and having some context around it. So, it like I said, it doesn't always take big, huge things to have a dramatic impact, but it does take, specifically for the mobile experience, it does take some thought around what might my users want to do on my mobile experience, and is it going to be different? Is it going to be different than my desktop website? Another thing that jumps out it's usually a big immediate black eye is if you have tons and tons of content. Believe it or not, people don't really like to read a lot on their mobile devices.
No.
And so, if you have one of those sites where, on the desktop version of your site, you've got lots of information, you might consider trimming it down for your mobile site. Maybe consider boiling it down to a few bullet points if you can. Just get straight and to the point, because, if you think about when somebody's on a mobile device, they're likely out and about.
Yeah.
They're engaged in other things that, they're not going to have enough attention to sit there and read paragraphs of content. And so, again, just thinking about what might somebody who's on a mobile phone, what might they want to do differently on my website?
Yes, the interesting thing is, like, as I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm going, I didn't know you could do that. I thought you were just stuck with one transferred over to the other, and you were just stuck with whatever came up, but apparently you're not.
Right, yeah, and you can absolutely customize your mobile experience and have it be different than your desktop experience. And in fact, you should do that.
Yeah. I'll have to go see what mine says. It's kind of funny because it's like your phone number. You never call yourself, so you never remember what it is.
Right, exactly.
Hey, this has really been awesome. This has really been some awesome, really good stuff. How do our listeners get a hold of you to contact you, see how you can help them?
Yeah, so if people are interested in a little bit more help, I actually put together a free guide if people want to kind of get started with testing on their website. So if you go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, there's a free downloadable guide on there that's got all the tools that I mentioned on here and several others. It's got kind of some steps that you can take and lots of helpful tips. I would also would love to respond to any questions people have if they want to reach out on Twitter at Chris Dayley. My last name is spelled Dayley. Or look me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome, and we'll put all the links in the show notes so that people can go to the website later on too, and be able to get a hold of you. And we'll put your webpage where that download is, so it'll take them right over to there. So this has really been awesome. I learned a lot. Like, I didn't know that you could do the different mobile, and I thought you were just stuck with what you got, which is cool. What do I know?
Thanks for having a show. I really appreciate it, Dave.
All right, and thanks a lot. It's just been fun. And hey, thanks for coming by today and listening to what Chris and I had to talk about. It was pretty interesting and exciting, just the things you can learn to do with your website. And Chris is excellent at that. So, hey, as we go forward, I know a couple weeks ago we had Chris Martinez on, and we took a look at how he does recurring revenue. Listen, what I'd like to do once a month starting in January, for any of you guys that are willing, let's sit down, do a podcast. We'll talk about your business. We'll take it apart. We'll put it back together again and see what we can do to increase your profits and help some other guys too. So, hey, go to info at Contractors Secret Weapon and say, hey, I want to be on the podcast, and let's take apart your business, put it back together.